It's time for Operation Freedom with your host, Dr. Dave Janda, on Southeast Michigan's conservative powerhouse, Wham Talk 1600.
Welcome back to Operation Freedom, folks. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our ancillary bunker linked to our main Freedom Bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor. We're here live for you every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern, also available 24/7 at davejanda.com with extra shows, extra content, extra guests, extra analysis, archives to all of our shows. This week, we actually posted a interview with our good friend, Dr. Peter McCullough, on the 5 false narratives of COVID and what you can do now. I assure you, you'll never see this information in the bought-off lamestream fake media. Why? Because all you have to do is watch about 30 seconds of cable TV, and you will come across a big pharma, big insurance ad. And that's exactly why you'll get none of this information. Now, we had this as a subscriber interview on our Insider Insight show, and our subscribers asked that I make it public, which we did. And if you go to our Rumble channel, Operation Freedom, which, by the way, Rumble is not the panacea everybody talks about, by the way, okay? Notifications are if you will, manipulated. View counts are manipulated. Follower numbers are manipulated. Why is that? Well, maybe because they're based in Canada, and maybe that could be the old Trudeau effect and his hench people. Yeah, I'm not kidding you, not paranoia. Actually, we have a way of monitoring this, and there are some significant issues with Rumble, but it's an alternative, right? Because we've been locked out on YouTube. We recently were given privileges back to post videos on YouTube after 3 out of 4 weeks being taken down because on videos that were taken down that were a year old, right? But it's indicative of the censorship that's occurring, which is how they can pull off a good portion of their agenda by censoring people who put you ahead of the curve. And my next guest is someone who has put people ahead of the curve, much to the chagrin of whatever you want to call it, the deep state, the globalist syndicate. I call it the globalist cult. Dr. Karlin Borchenko, after earning her MBA and a PhD in psychology, specializing in industrial and organizational psychology, set her sights on helping individuals and organizations to create, imagine this, more productive and fulfilling work experiences by combining organizational and positive psychology with mindfulness strategies. Actually, what she set upon was exactly what the globalist cult wants put to an end. Imagine a positive work environment, positive psychology, right? Fulfilling work experiences. They've done everything in their power to make it so that none of that can occur, which is why they have targeted her and her efforts. She has several websites, zenworkplace.com and drkarlin.com. She wrote a book, Actively Unwoke, website activelyunwoke.com. It's my honor to welcome back to our platform, Dr. Karlin Borchenko. Karlin, welcome back to the Operation Freedom Show and platform.
Hey, Dave, it's really good to be back, and you're not going to believe it. I've got a little bit of a scoop for you today. Speaking of keeping you guys ahead of the curve, I did something very interesting yesterday. Do you want to hear about it?
I sure do. Fire ahead.
I spent all day at a socialist conference at Hampshire College in Western Massachusetts. I was undercover. They all thought I was one of them, and I've seen some of the most crazy things I've ever seen in my life at this conference.
So, Karlin, before you give us the skinny on what happened there, what did you wear? What did you wear to this socialist event?
So here's the thing. On my YouTube channel, we've been watching Real Socialists on my channel every week for about 6 months. It's called Socialism Saturday. We actually watch their conference presentations and stuff like that. So I had done a lot of research into how socialists talk and how they dress. And how I dressed was plain jeans and very drab colors. I wore kind of like an olive green shirt. But the most important part, Dave, is the red bandana. which signifies
nice
communism.
touch. How about a hat that said Yo Fidel on it or something like that?
No, that's too much. So you got to be subtle when you're a socialist. I mean, there were some T-shirts that were outlandish. Like one T-shirt said, "Thank God for abortion," but I just wanted to go with the red bandana just as a nod. We also did have to wear masks, and so that was actually helpful to me in terms of maintaining a disguise.
What kind of mask?
Like just a surgical mask. They're pretending that COVID is like still a thing and that masks work, and so everyone was required to wear a mask.
You didn't like have to wear like a red mask or anything. It was any color went.
No, you can wear any color you wanted, but I actually wore a fake mask. I have a mask that looks very real, but it's totally breathable and doesn't even feel like you're wearing one, and so I wore that.
Okay, so tell us what happened. Give us the skinny on the content of this confab of, I don't know, socialist, totalitarians, communist, whatever you want to call them.
Exactly. So this was an organization called Collective Power, and this is supposed to be a conference about reproductive justice, so a lot of stuff about abortion, but they actually ended up spending most of their time talking about trans people and how conservatives are so mean to trans people. And let me tell you what, they really hate Matt Walsh, like a lot. They and the Heritage Foundation and the Family Research Council. But the most interesting part of it for me was I got to go on a tour of how to have a self-managed abortion, which they're teaching people how to do. Now, they had to give a disclaimer. They said, it's not legal to do this in the state of Massachusetts, so we're definitely not telling you to do this. But if you were to do this, this is exactly how you do this. And the woman giving the tour had a T-shirt that had the names of the abortion pill drugs that you can get, and they walked you through the process of making sure you have a lot of hot tea available and a nice warm bed to relax in with a heating pad. But the most shocking one to me, Dave, you're going to fall off your chair. They recommended getting an abortion doula to hold your hand and reassure you about having the self-managed abortion as you're sitting on the toilet bleeding out the child. And they had a stool next to the toilet. There was a real toilet because this was a tour. And there was a stool sitting next to the toilet, and it said an abortion doula for every person having an abortion. And then do you know what you do after you have your abortion on the toilet with the abortion doula holding your hand? Once that's all done, you go to the shrine or the altar where they have candles and crystals and tarot cards and all sorts of spiritual things. And then you're supposed to connect with your spirituality after having an abortion, because your self-care after your abortion is really the most important thing.
Okay, so Carlin, right now, everybody's saying this has to be, this can't be legit. What Carlin is talking about. So she's exaggerating this event. In fact, Carlin, you're not, are you?
No, I'm not. And if people want to see the actual photos, now I wasn't allowed to record in video, but I was able to take photos of every single element of the self-managed abortion tour, and I will be publishing those tomorrow on my Substack, which is Carlin, Karlyn, .substack.com. And so if people don't believe it, they can go and see for themselves. But no, this was 100% real, and there's more than, this is one element of an entire day of insanity.
Carlin, how many people were present there at this event?
Probably about 200, 250. They were mostly women. There were absolutely trans women there. There were a lot of trans organizations there. There was one organization that was providing services to trans children in Western Massachusetts. They started providing services to children starting around 2 years old. They have virtual support groups for trans children starting at 5 years old. And from them, I was able to get a whole 4-page book list of every single book that they recommend for trans children starting in kindergarten. So starting when they're 5 years old.
How long did this go, this event?
This was all day long. I got there about 8:30 yesterday morning, and I left at about 6:30 at night.
Did they serve food and beverages?
Yes, they did. The food was actually plentiful and great. There was breakfast, there was lunch, there was snacks in between, there were beverages everywhere. It was actually, the ironic thing, Dave, is it was actually a really well done event, and the people there were lovely people. They were very nice. Now, remember, they thought I was one of them, but I didn't meet a mean, angry person. I didn't meet anyone that I would ascribe as like an angry kind of like SJW type character. Now, there were people that looked like that, but they were all lovely to talk to. And, I have to give it to them. They have some good teachers among their ranks. These are people that know how to train activists. They are very good at it. They know their stuff. And so I actually had a really good time at the Socialist Conference, if I'm honest. I mean, the content was crazy, but the people were nice.
So was the beverage of choice Bud Light?
No. No, they would never drink that stuff. I don't know, no. They're not going to drink that. No, they actually didn't serve alcohol at all. They actually had mocktails at the end, like a little sparkly peach mocktail.
What was the age range of people there? What was the age range of the folks there?
Mostly college students, because this was at Hampshire College in Western Massachusetts. So Hampshire College is part of the 5-college system in Western Massachusetts. So you have like UMass, Mount Holyoke, Amherst, Hampshire, Smith College is there, Williams College is not far away. And so there are a lot of college students there, and they looked like there were a lot of gender studies majors there. We had to go around and announce our pronouns and talk about ourselves in the breakout session, so people would talk about that. There were absolutely people with the shaved heads, the crazy hair, the not shaving, and all that sort of thing. But there were also older ladies who looked just like normal people. And I got to tell you, the moderator of the very first panel of the day was the former president of Hampshire College, and she denounced capitalism and called conservatives F-wads. But she didn't say F. She said the words.
So this Hampshire College, this, as you mentioned, is part of the state university system?
I don't know if Hampshire College is a public university, but there's a system called the 5 colleges in Western Massachusetts where if you go to one of the colleges, you get access to the resources at the other colleges.
And it was on the campus of this Hampshire College University?
It was on the campus of Hampshire College, and the moderator of the very first panel was a former professor of philosophy at Hampshire College and was the former interim president of the college.
Carlin, if you were an alumnus of Hampshire College, would you have been happy that this occurred on the premises of that college?
Well, it's actually funny you mention that because I am an alumnus of Boston University, and Boston University is the home of Ibram X. Kendi, and one of the lawyers that was doing presentations at this conference is in the faculty of the School of Law at my alma mater. And so I can tell you, I'm not at all happy that my alma mater my alma mater invested $20 million in anti-racism work in the last year. And so no, I'm livid at them, and if I knew that my college was hosting something like what I was at yesterday, I wouldn't like that either. Sadly, I think probably the majority of people who are alums of Hampshire College are completely fine with it and would have loved everything that was said there.
Now, Carlin, does this organization that put on this conference, or whatever you want to call it, do they have a YouTube channel? Do they have a Twitter presence? Do they have a social media presence? Facebook page? Do they push? Where do they push their content?
So how I found out about them was I follow one of the speakers of the conference, and I kind of track what she's doing. She's head of this organization called the Institute for Research into Male Supremacy. And I found out about this conference because I happened to find out that she was speaking at it. And so this organization is called Collective Power for Reproductive Justice. It looks like they actually have an extensive list of partnerships. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. I'm pretty sure I may have seen them on YouTube at some point, but you can actually find out all about them. Their website is collectivepowerrj.org.
So, Carlin, a number of us were pitched off of social media platforms because during the whole COVID goat rodeo and them pushing an experimental medical intervention that has been described by the manufacturers as not as a vaccination but as gene therapy, really it's a gene medical intervention, We were pushed because we were telling people you need to have comprehensive informed consent. If you want to get it, get it. If you don't want to get it, don't get it. But before you make any decision, you need to have comprehensive informed consent of the benefits, but in particular of the potential downside risk. So we were thrown off and we were ostracized from society because we said that comprehensive informed consent is important. Carlin, how does that jive with this organization pushing you can do your own abortion at home and them being able to have, a university, college, please come in and talk to people about this and network this information to as many people as you can. How does that square up?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this, Dave. So I want to go back about a year ago because this was not the first time I've heard these groups talk about self-managed abortion. Like I said, I've been tracking real socialists, especially in higher education, for about a year now. And, about a year ago when the Roe v. Wade draft decision was released, I actually, on the same day, watched a presentation that was out of the University of California, Berkeley. This was done at exactly the same time. They were actually talking about the draft decision being released. And in that presentation, people at the University of California at Berkeley were talking about how they were fully prepared for Roe to be rescinded because they had already planned to use abortion pills and they already had ways to get them across state lines. It was in the presentation. People can go back on my channel and watch it. I'll try to find a clip to put up for people. But they've been pushing these abortion. They were expecting Roe to get repealed. They've been planning for this for a long time, and they are absolutely pushing these abortion pills, even in places where it's not legal. Like I said, they had to do a whole disclaimer in the state of Massachusetts yesterday saying it's illegal to do this here because we live in an authoritarian regime and they won't let us control our own bodies, but it's illegal to do this here. So we're not telling you to do this. We can't tell you to do this. We're just going to talk about it and why we think it's important, and we're going to tell you exactly how to do it if you wanted to. So they know what they're doing.
And during this conference, Carlin, was there any discussion about potential risks and complications to this self-induced home abortion?
Oh, no. They basically said that it was perfectly safe and fine, and you were going to feel uncomfortable, and it was going to be more uncomfortable than a period, and you were going to bleed a little bit more. But as long as you have some tea and an abortion doula to help you, and just a warm bed to lay in for a couple days with a heating pad, it'll all be over. That's it.
Carlin, I've been doing this show for 12 and a half years. I don't think I have ever been knocked off my chair as much as I have been in the past 15 minutes in the 12 and a half years.
You're very welcome, Dave. No, I mean, I understand. It was so hard. Thank God I was wearing a mask yesterday, to be honest, because there was one session that I was sitting in. They were talking about white supremacy and male supremacy and the patriarchy and all this stuff. And I was sitting in the middle of the session and I was looking around the room at all of these gender studies majors with their shaved heads and I'm a weird kind of girl. I dress very weird, but they dress really weird, and just they look exactly like you expect them to look based on all of the things that we see online. And I was literally sitting in a room surrounded by these people, and I just thought, I am in an episode of Socialism Saturday where we watch socialist videos. I'm actually in them right now, and I almost burst out laughing because it was so absurd and yet so crazy at the same time. It was really like being in a movie, something I never expected to experience. So it really is crazy. The things that people see online do not compare to what these people say in person when they think that their friends are the only ones listening.
So, Carlin, let's put your psychologist hat on. How do you deal? How if you had a family member that was part of this, and I'll be brutally honest, this is cult-like, okay? If mentality of this conference you went to, when they're discussing medical interventions without even talking about potential risks and complications, I mean frankly, it's criminal. Carlin, how? So let's say you have a family member that comes back and says, I went to this conference. Really? Tell us about the conference. And they describe the conference just as you just did, okay? How should you deal with these people?
I think that this might surprise people. I think you need to listen to them. I didn't go to an event like this until I had been listening to socialists for several hours a week for at least 6 months. Okay. I knew how they talked. I knew how they thought. And I think that this is very important. You can't go into an event like that and say, here's all the reasons why you are wrong and this is crazy. Like, we're talking about it being crazy here because we're among our friends. But if I had an actual socialist in front of me, I wouldn't say they're crazy because they've been led down the wrong road and lied to by people that they trust. And so I consider a lot of these people, especially when we're looking at the students, to be victims of this ideology. This is all they've ever known from people that they trusted. And so you have to first listen to what they have to say and to try to understand why they see things like they do. So don't go right into the insults and calling them crazy. You need to understand their perspective in order to reach them.
So how do you deprogram them then?
Well, you have to first understand where they're coming from, and then I think it's a matter of you have to just plant seeds here and there and meet them on their terms and try to show things to them in a calm manner. Like, I have never seen I'm a pro-choice person, Dave. I've never seen this abortion doula thing before. And I watch this stuff all the time. And so that to me is shocking. That is shocking. And a shrine that you pray to after your abortion, that's shocking. And so I think that people who think they're on this team, they can be reached in similar ways as long as they don't feel like you're trying to change them. They have to want to change themselves.
So if I was going to deal with somebody, let's say my neighbor comes over and says, hey, I was at this conference in Massachusetts. Here's what my tact would be. Okay, listen, although, boy, my facial expressions might be a little off for if it was one-on-one. But then I would say, and just as I raised with you, comprehensive informed consent is very, very important. And part of that is listing the risks and complications associated, whatever that procedure or intervention might be, what was discussed. And when they come up with the big, well, nothing was, I would say, do you really think that that's in the best interests of everybody at that conference, that it wasn't discussed? Now, what's wrong with that approach?
See, that's not how I would approach it, because you've already put him on the defense because he already thinks that this is going to be an argument. Do you know what I did yesterday? I didn't lie all day long. I mean, I didn't say who I was and what I believed, but I didn't lie to them about some things too. For example, I actually bonded with a group of them over a shared hatred of Matt Walsh. I cannot stand Matt Walsh. I think Matt Walsh, no offense to the people who like Matt Walsh, but I think he is awful for the conservative movement. I also have a real problem with the way that some conservative Christians treat people who don't believe what they do. And so these were common points that we could actually bond on and agree upon. And that's probably the end that I would find with them. Where are the things that you do overlap? Where are the things you can agree? Because if you can establish some level of trust that you're not here to just hate everything that they believe, and you want to acknowledge that there are good reasons why they probably do believe some of the things that they believe. But if you can find that common ground, I think they're going to be more open to hearing your perspective on other things and considering it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes sense, and I would have a very difficult time, unfortunately, being brutally honest, trying to find any kind of common ground. But if that's the key to having them never change their mind right away, obviously, or maybe even down the line, but at least let them think about and become more introspection about their positions, then that's what, as a psychologist, we're going to have to take your advice and try to find that common ground. So in our last minute and a half, Carlin, educate I picked myself off the floor. Educate our listeners on how they can follow your efforts and about your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow along with the series I'm going to write about spending the day at the Socialist Conference, again, on my Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. You can also get to it by going to my website, activelyunwoke.com, where you can pick up a copy of my book, all about the woke ideology and how to fight back against it. And you can also find a link to my Substack and all of my social media there. And thank you again, Dave, for having me and for being able to share this story with your listeners.
Carlin, I thank you. I really thank you for this information, because I don't know of anyone else I know who could have gone into that organization and come out alive to speak about it, frankly. And I thank you for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. I thank you for your insight. I thank you for your advice. And I thank you for everything you have done and will do. Folks, you're listening to Operation Freedom.